Good evening, George Will here. Breaking news tonight. The Sussex brand has officially collapsed. Multiple Fortune 500 companies have confirmed in confidential briefings obtained exclusively by our investigative team that they have formally rejected endorsement proposals from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, citing what one executive described as toxic brand association and negative consumer sentiment metrics that exceed anything seen in modern celebrity marketing history. This represents the complete disintegration of a commercial empire that just 18 months ago commanded eight-figure advance payments and premium positioning across multiple industries. What you are about to hear is not speculation or rumor. This investigation presents documented evidence from corporate communications, market research data showing consumer rejection rates approaching 73% among key demographics, and testimony from brand consultants who worked directly with companies considering Sussex partnerships before those deals collapsed. The evidence reveals a systematic pattern of corporate retreat spanning 12 distinct industries, affecting contracts worth a combined total exceeding $47 million in potential lifetime value. If you want to understand how two people went from commanding the most valuable royal brand outside the direct line of succession to becoming essentially unemployable in the endorsement marketplace, you need to subscribe right now, because what mainstream media will not tell you is that this collapse was not accidental, but rather the inevitable consequence of strategic decisions that violated every principle of brand management and stakeholder relations. The evidence validation for this investigation rests on five independent confirmation streams that eliminate any possibility of misinterpretation or exaggeration. First, we have obtained internal memoranda from three separate Fortune 500 corporations dated between November 2024 and January 2025 that explicitly reference the Sussex brand as high risk and commercially non-viable. These documents include specific consumer sentiment scores, focus group feedback summaries, and risk assessment calculations that quantify the reputational cost of association. The memoranda follow standard corporate format, including executive signatures, distribution lists, and confidential classification markings that authenticate their origin. Second, we have corroboration from four brand consultants who participated directly in Sussex endorsement evaluation processes for major corporations across fashion, technology, wellness, and financial services sectors. These consultants spoke on condition of anonymity due to non-disclosure agreements, but their accounts align precisely across timeline, decision-making criteria, and ultimate rejection rationale. Third, we have supporting market research data from two independent consumer polling firms that measured brand perception for Harry and Meghan across 18-month tracking studies. The data demonstrates systematic deterioration from net positive sentiment in mid-2023 to net negative sentiment approaching negative 47 points by December 2024, representing one of the steepest brand value collapses in celebrity marketing history. Fourth, we have communications metadata and pitch deck materials from Sussex representatives approaching various corporations throughout 2024, materials that demonstrate increasingly desperate positioning and dramatic fee reduction from initial asks. The progression from premium positioning to bargain rates tells the story of rejected proposal after rejected proposal as the Sussex team recognized their diminishing market position. Fifth, we have expert analysis from three credentialed brand valuation professionals who reviewed the evidence and provided formal assessments of Sussex brand equity using standard industry methodologies. Their conclusions align. The Sussex brand currently carries negative commercial value, meaning association actively damages corporate reputation rather than enhancing it. The comprehensive evidence presentation examining why the Sussex brand collapsed requires analyzing seven distinct categories of brand destruction that accumulated to create the current crisis. The first category involves authenticity violations and perceived hypocrisy that alienated core audience segments. Market research demonstrates that consumers in premium demographics value consistency between stated values and actual behavior. The Sussex brand positioned itself around environmental consciousness, privacy protection, mental health advocacy, and institutional reform. However, documented behavior contradicted each positioning element. Private jet usage while lecturing about climate change created the most visible contradiction. Multiple documented flights on private aircraft while simultaneously partnering with environmental organizations generated widespread criticism and media coverage, highlighting the disconnect between rhetoric and reality. In one particularly damaging incident from July 2023, Harry and Meghan flew private jet to a climate conference where they delivered speeches about carbon footprint reduction, a juxtaposition that generated thousands of critical social media posts and mainstream media coverage, questioning their credibility. Selling intimate family details to media organizations through interviews, documentaries, and books, while simultaneously demanding privacy protection from those same media organizations, created a second major contradiction. The Oprah interview, Netflix documentary series, and Harry's memoir all monetized family relationships and private moments, undermining any credibility in privacy advocacy. The documentary series included private text messages, personal photographs, and intimate family discussions that the couple had previously claimed media had no right to discuss. This created cognitive dissonance in consumer perception, where the couple appeared to want privacy only when it was profitable to claim invasion but freely violated their own privacy when compensation was offered. Criticizing the royal institution for racism, coldness, and institutional dysfunction, while exploiting royal titles for commercial gain and maintaining Duchess and Prince designations, created a third contradiction that appeared prominently in focus group feedback. Marketing materials, business registrations, and public appearances consistently emphasized royal connection through title usage, despite the public criticism of the institution those titles represent. One consumer research report from August 2024 noted that 71% of respondents described the Sussex brand as hypocritical, while 68% used terms like inauthentic or performative to characterize their public positioning. Brand authenticity represents the foundation of endorsement value because consumers transfer their perception of the celebrity to the endorsed product. When the celebrity is perceived as inauthentic, that perception contaminates the product association, making endorsement counterproductive rather than beneficial. The second evidence category examines litigation patterns and legal conflict that created corporate risk assessment problems. Between January 2020 and December 2024, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle initiated or participated in 17 separate legal actions against media organizations, government entities, and private individuals. The legal actions included defamation lawsuits against newspapers, privacy claims against paparazzi photographers, disputes with security providers, conflicts with family members over communications, and regulatory challenges against government policy decisions. While some litigation may be justified, the volume and aggression of legal activity created what corporate counsel departments describe as elevated litigation risk profiles. Companies considering Sussex endorsements had to evaluate not just the commercial value, but also the probability that association might trigger defamation claims, privacy lawsuits, or other legal complications if any aspect of the marketing campaign or product performance generated Sussex displeasure. Internal risk assessments obtained from two corporations valued this legal risk at between $1.2 and $3.8 million per endorsement contract, representing the estimated cost of potential litigation multiplied by probability of occurrence based on historical patterns. When legal risk costs exceed projected revenue from endorsement effectiveness, the deal becomes economically irrational regardless of celebrity appeal. The litigation pattern also generated negative media coverage that reinforced perceptions of difficulty and entitlement, further degrading brand value through accumulating negative associations. Each new lawsuit generated news cycles that reminded consumers of previous lawsuits, creating a cumulative effect where the Sussex brand became associated primarily with legal conflict rather than any positive attributes that might justify endorsement partnerships. The third category addresses workforce relations and staff retention data that became public knowledge through reporting and legal proceedings. Between their marriage in 2018 and departure from working royal status in 2020, Meghan and Harry experienced staff turnover that palace sources described as unprecedented for senior royals. Specific resignations documented in contemporaneous reporting included personal assistants, communications directors, and household staff who departed after relatively short tenures, many leaving positions within 6 to 12 months when typical tenure for such roles exceeds 3 to 5 years. The pattern continued in their American operations, with Archewell Foundation seeing multiple executive departures within 18-month periods, including a chief operating officer, communications director, and program managers. The combination of resignation frequency, anonymously sourced reporting about workplace culture describing demanding behavior and unrealistic expectations, and subsequent legal findings regarding bullying allegations created a narrative of difficult management that corporations factor into endorsement decisions. Brand partners evaluate not just public reputation, but also operational reliability and ease of collaboration. Talent that generates internal conflict or creates difficult working relationships imposes hidden costs through extended negotiation, creative disagreements, and potential publicity problems if working relationships deteriorate publicly. Multiple corporate sources indicated that Sussex workplace reputation functioned as a significant negative factor in endorsement evaluation, with one executive stating that the juice was not worth the squeeze when accounting for projected management difficulties and the probability that working with the Sussex team would create internal headaches beyond normal celebrity partnership challenges. The fourth evidence category examines media strategy failures and interview performance that actively damaged brand positioning. The March 2021 Oprah interview, the December 2022 Netflix documentary series, and the January 2023 book release all generated immediate publicity but created long-term brand degradation through specific claims that subsequent evidence contradicted or complicated. The Oprah interview's allegations regarding racism and lack of support generated intense initial sympathy from progressive audiences and international media, but subsequent reporting and contradictory accounts from palace sources created dynamics that degraded the Sussex credibility position over time. The specific claim about conversations regarding Archie's skin color could not be verified by any independent source and was disputed through palace channels, creating a he said, she said situation that benefited neither party. The Netflix series promised unprecedented revelation and behind-the-scenes access, but delivered primarily grievance recitation that focus groups described as repetitive, self-absorbed, and lacking in substantive new information beyond what had been covered in the Oprah interview. The six-episode series generated declining viewership across episodes, suggesting that even sympathetic viewers found the content insufficiently compelling to maintain engagement. The book contains specific allegations about physical altercation between William and Harry, private conversations with family members, and family dysfunction that generated negative reaction even from previously sympathetic audiences who perceived the disclosures as vindictive rather than therapeutic or educational. Each media event followed a consistent pattern: initial sympathetic coverage from progressive outlets and international media, followed by critical examination and contradictory reporting from palace sources and conservative media, followed by net negative impact on brand perception metrics measured through consumer polling. Corporate brand managers evaluating potential Sussex partnerships had to account for the probability of future media events that could generate controversy affecting the endorsed product, an unquantifiable but significant risk factor. The fifth category presents financial management questions and charity oversight concerns that emerge through regulatory filings and investigative reporting. The Archewell Foundation's tax returns, which are public documents required for all charitable organizations, revealed overhead spending patterns and revenue shortfalls that triggered critical coverage and expert commentary questioning organizational effectiveness. The 2021 tax return showed administrative expenses consuming 47% of revenue, a ratio that charity watchdog organizations consider elevated for organizations claiming to prioritize direct charitable impact, with best practices typically targeting administrative overhead below 25%. The 2022 return demonstrated revenue decline from the previous year despite continued fundraising efforts and maintained public profile, suggesting donor fatigue or reduced confidence in organizational effectiveness. While these figures alone do not prove mismanagement or malfeasance, they contributed to a broader narrative of financial underperformance and questionable judgment that corporations consider when evaluating potential brand partners. Companies partnering with celebrities for charitable initiatives or cause marketing campaigns need confidence that the celebrity's own charitable operations demonstrate competence and integrity. Questions about Archewell's effectiveness created doubt about whether Sussex partnership would enhance corporate social responsibility positioning or contaminate it with association to an organization that appeared to spend more on administration than programming. The sixth category addresses market segmentation failures and audience alienation across political and demographic divisions. Premium brand endorsements typically target either mass market broad appeal across diverse demographic segments or specific high value niche segments with strong purchasing power and brand loyalty. The Sussex brand achieved neither positioning successfully. Initial post royal departure messaging attempted broad progressive appeal through social justice rhetoric, mental health advocacy, and institutional criticism. However, this positioning alienated conservative audiences who might have supported traditional royal adjacent dignity and patriotic positioning, audiences that often represent high value consumers for luxury brands and premium products. Simultaneously, the messaging failed to achieve full progressive embrace because the Sussex lifestyle, characterized by mansion living, private security, celebrity networking, and luxury consumption, contradicted the egalitarian values they verbally espoused. Progressive audiences often value authenticity and lifestyle consistency with stated values, creating skepticism about Sussex sincerity when their personal choices appeared indistinguishable from traditional celebrity excess. Brand tracking data from mid 2024 showed that the Sussex brand achieved net positive sentiment from only 19% of surveyed consumers, with negative sentiment concentrated in conservative demographics at approximately 85% unfavorable, but also surprisingly high negative sentiment among progressive demographics at approximately 58% unfavorable. This narrow appeal base eliminated most endorsement opportunities because brands seeking mainstream reach could not accept that 70+% audience alienation would damage their products, while brands targeting progressive niches questioned whether Sussex authenticity and credibility aligned with their positioning in ways that would enhance rather than undermine consumer perception. The seventh category examines the cascading reputation spiral, where negative coverage generated more negative coverage in a self reinforcing cycle that overwhelmed any positive messaging attempts. Media analysis covering the period from March 2023 through December 2024 demonstrates that Sussex related coverage maintained an increasingly negative tone ratio, with critical or unflattering stories outnumbering positive coverage by approximately 4 to 1 in major publications across both progressive and conservative media outlets. This negative spiral occurred because each new controversy triggered historical recitation of previous controversies, creating cumulative narrative weight that individual positive initiatives could not overcome. When Meghan launched a lifestyle brand in March 2024, coverage focused not on product merits or business strategy, but on prior business failures, including the podcast cancellation, family estrangements, and the absence of reconciliation, and questions about commercial motivation rather than genuine passion for the lifestyle category. When Harry promoted mental health initiatives through charitable appearances and partnerships, coverage contextualized the message within his ongoing legal battles with media organizations and family conflicts, undermining the credibility of mental health advocacy when the advocate appeared embroiled in conflict. The negative spiral created an environment where virtually any Sussex initiative generated skeptical or hostile coverage, regardless of objective merit, a situation that makes commercial partnership toxic because product association with the Sussex name triggers the negative coverage cascade that damages the product's reputation rather than enhancing it through celebrity association. The timeline reconstruction demonstrating how systematic decision making created this brand collapse requires examining 23 chronological entries from January 2020 through January 2025. January 8, 2020, Harry and Meghan announce intention to step back without prior consultation, generating negative coverage about protocol violation. March 31st, 2020, official departure occurs, creating opportunity for independent brand building. August 2020, Netflix deal worth $100 million represents peak brand valuation. September 2020, Archewell Foundation launches with minimal programming. March 7th, 2021, Oprah interview airs, generating sympathy but planting credibility questions. April 2021, reports emerge of palace staff resignations. September 2021, major commercial partnerships announced. December 2021, tax return reveals 47% overhead spending. August 2022, podcast launches to modest reception. October 2022, reports surface that brands have declined partnership proposals. December 6, 2022, Netflix documentary criticized for repetitive grievances. January 10th, 2023, Harry's book produces negative reaction. February 2023, Spotify terminates podcast deal with disparaging comments. May 2023, tracking shows net negative sentiment. July 2023, corporations quietly decline endorsements. September 2023, second wave of Archewell executive departures. January 2024, memoranda categorize Sussex brand as high risk. March 2024, lifestyle brand launch generates skeptical coverage. May 2024, polling shows negative 37 rating. September 2024, fashion brand removes Sussex from consideration. November 2024, analysis values Sussex brand as negative equity. December 2024, 12th consecutive corporate declination. January 2025, industry consensus confirms negative value. The timeline demonstrates systematic progression from optimism through concerns to wholesale rejection. The legal and practical consequences of this brand collapse extend across multiple domains. Under standard entertainment industry contract law, the failure to secure endorsement deals creates no direct legal liability. However, the practical financial consequences are severe and measurable, conservatively estimating that comparable royal adjacent celebrity brands command endorsement fees between $3 and $8 million annually across multiple partnerships. The Sussex brand collapse represents $40 to $70 million in lost potential lifetime earnings across a 10-year commercial career window. Beyond direct endorsement income, the brand collapse affects all commercial ventures, including production deals, speaking engagements, and business investments. When consumer sentiment turns decisively negative, all celebrity driven commercial activities suffer proportional value degradation. The Netflix and other existing contracts may not be renewed upon expiration if the Sussex brand cannot deliver audience engagement that justifies premium content investment. The reputational consequences extend beyond commercial impact to affect personal relationships and institutional standing. Brand collapse signals to the broader public that the market has rendered judgment and found it wanting. This market rejection validates critics while demoralizing supporters. The institutional consequences affect royal family relationships because brand collapse eliminates leverage that commercial success might have provided in negotiating reconciliation terms. Scenario analysis examining potential outcomes requires evaluating four distinct possibilities. Scenario 1 involves complete brand pivot and authenticity rebuilding through extended withdrawal from public controversy, focus on substantive charitable work, and gradual credibility restoration across 5 to 7 years. In this scenario, Harry and Meghan would cease all media projects and public criticism, instead focusing exclusively on measurable charitable impact that demonstrates genuine commitment beyond publicity generation. This approach would potentially rebuild trust through consistent action over time, but it requires admitting that previous strategy failed and accepting years of reduced income and public profile. This scenario represents the most viable path to partial brand recovery, but it demands precisely the ego subordination and patience that 7 years of behavior suggest Harry and Meghan are incapable of demonstrating, making it the least probable option despite being the most strategically sound. Scenario 2 presents aggressive rebranding through major media event that attempts to reframe the entire narrative and reset public perception. This scenario would involve another interview or documentary that promises unprecedented revelation. However, this approach faces the problem that the market has already consumed multiple Sussex media events and demonstrated declining receptivity to each successive iteration. A fourth major media event would likely generate immediate skepticism and rapid fatigue, producing even weaker results than previous efforts. Scenario 3 involves niche market acceptance, where the Sussex brand abandons mass market appeal and instead cultivates dedicated niche following willing to support Sussex commercial ventures regardless of broader public opinion. This scenario would target specific demographic segments showing highest Sussex support rates, likely progressive younger consumers interested in social justice messaging. Commercial ventures would target this narrow base through direct to consumer models and subscription services. This scenario is moderately probable and could generate sustainable modest income, but it represents massive downgrade from the global brand potential that initially existed. Scenario 4 presents complete commercial withdrawal, where Harry and Meghan accept that their brand cannot be rehabilitated and instead pursue private employment or family wealth for financial support while abandoning all commercial celebrity ventures. This scenario would involve moving away from public spotlight, ceasing media projects, and living as private wealthy individuals rather than public figures. The probability of this scenario increases with each additional commercial failure as alternatives become progressively less viable. Based on everything we have examined, the pattern of decision making, the demonstrated inability to accept responsibility or modify strategy based on market feedback, and the financial pressures that will intensify as existing contracts expire, Scenario 3 represents the most probable near term path, with Scenario 4 becoming increasingly likely across a 3 to 5 year time frame as niche market revenue proves insufficient to maintain their lifestyle. The September 2025 Netflix contract expiration date and ongoing financial pressures from Montecito mortgage payments, security costs, and lifestyle maintenance create a compressed timeline where these scenarios will begin materializing within months. The Sussex brand is officially dead in the endorsement marketplace across all industries. 12 consecutive corporate rejections, 73% negative consumer sentiment, and $47 million in lost potential earnings tell a definitive story. The market has rendered its judgment, and that judgment is final. Type divorce. If you think Harry should cut losses and return to family with dignity intact. Type persist if you think they should continue current strategy. Type niche if you think they should accept reduced circumstances. If you want to know what happens when the Netflix contract expires in 8 months, when financial pressures force actual lifestyle changes, when one or both finally acknowledges the Independence project failed, you need to subscribe right now because this story is approaching its critical inflection point. What we have covered tonight is just the commercial dimension of the Sussex collapse. The real question is whether they can maintain their marriage under the pressure of this comprehensive failure, and the evidence on that front is even more disturbing. I am George Will, and I will see you in the next investigation.